Or this computer. All right. Well, we don't have a cool countdown like before now, but what's been on your mind? What's your new ideas, new things? What's going on?
Well, we've with football at the moment, we've been doing touch wood really really well. Uh, Come the start of the season, and we played cup game on the weekend. So here in Australia, we've got like the FFA Cup, where the teams pretty much from each state play against each other. And you kind of get drawn out in each of the games, and there's different rounds and blah blah blah, and then you kind of make your way through. Depending on what league you're in, will be dependent on when you actually come into the cups. There's like qualifying rounds and pre-qualifying rounds and kind of all that sort of stuff. We played our first cup game on the weekend. We played against State League One side, so we are kind of like the top div. Then there's State League One, State League Two. Then there's like all the amateur teams which have kind of done the qualifying rounds beforehand. Anyway, we played against a State League One side. We won. First half was a little bit cagey, solely, I think, based on the fact that we'd made some changes to our team, and they obviously came out with intention and a point to prove. And I guess where I'm going with this is that, like, what was really, really cool to see is the strength and resilience shown by our team to end up winning that game 4-0, like in the second half, even though we had changed, what was it, 4 or 5 players that we'd been working really, really hard with throughout this, the season, because they hadn't really been getting much game time, to actually be able to put them in. And although it was still a State League One side, sometimes it's a lot more challenging to actually come up against those teams, because you're kind of, the team that you're playing with is different. The team you're playing against, you don't really play against those types of teams, and they're definitely a lot rougher, a lot harder in terms of like when they're pressing for the ball, or when they're trying to win the ball, like let's win the ball, but let's see if we can hurt you at the same time. So it's a little bit different. But I guess where I'm going with this as well is it's really nice to see that, like, the players that we're working with, they came in and they did just as good a job as the players that would kind of usually start, or have been usually starting. And a lot of the boys that I've worked with as well, like, you could see that there's like this physical nature about them where they're just solid in terms of, like, they get a hit, or they get tackled, or they're kind of pressed hard and pressed high. They can deal with that pressure because they have the strength and, like, the belief in their body that, like, yeah, I can hold this player off, or yeah, I feel stronger on the ball, or yeah, I can take this player on, or I can deal with the hit. I had one of the boys that just he got bashed from pillar to post, and there was a pretty horrific, like, challenge. Referee didn't take control of the game and all that, but that's out of our control. And he'd gone out over on his ankle after a player had gone straight through him, and it's like, yeah, he was in pain and agony in that little instance, but then just gets back up. It's like, yep, I can go again. Yeah, I can go again. It's like really, really cool to see that side of things, because I know that I would do this a lot, and I don't know if it's the same with you, but you would focus a lot on trying to build their strength, that you would kind of forget that it's actually building their mental and emotional resilience as well while we're doing a lot of these exercises, because it's challenging to do a sled for 100, 200, 300 meters with a pretty heavy kind of weight, but it's just building that resilience. And do you find that with the people that you work with, that's something that they also get without kind of working towards training? Like, do you feel that their resilience when they're going out and playing, or even in their day-to-day life, is kind of building? Is that something that you've noticed?
Uh, yeah. I mean, part of it I think is it's easier to be resilient when you're not working through pain. Like it just makes everything easier when you don't have something you're dealing with in the back of your head, or you're worried about, even if there isn't pain, if you're worried about it. Like, you came back from an ankle sprain and you're fine. You're back to where you should be, but like you haven't proven it to yourself yet, then it's like that's hard. Yeah, I mean, I haven't had anybody come up back to me like directly like, yeah, man, I mentally this has helped a lot, but it definitely helps. It definitely helps. I don't have like specific instances of people becoming like different people through working at the gym, but it plays a part, you know.
Yeah, it's really interesting for me, because it's not that I've had people athletes that I'm working with come up to me and say, "Hey, Steph, like I feel more resilient." But it's just interesting when you see it in person, having been to all the games and watching all the games and seeing that growth over time. It's almost like you don't, as a player, you wouldn't really recognize it. So there was one of the players that I've been working with for about 4 or 5 weeks now, and one thing I noticed is his ability to almost front up players. And when I say front up, it might be a little bit hard for me to explain it. So if you're watching it, it's probably easier. But a player or a defender, he's a forward. Not like not a massive guy, but his feet, he's just electric on the ball. And his footwork is incredible. There's one thing that he's been doing probably since the third week of the season. The first 2 weeks, not so much, but since the third week, like, defender comes to him and he has that confidence to get his arm up and actually kind of lean back into that defender and have the ball out in front of him where defenders just can't get the ball. And he's done it so many times since then. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's since working with me, but it's interesting that having started to work with me, it's almost like he's found that confidence. Like, yeah, I am strong. Like, I can deal with this. I know how to position my body and use my body. Some players are better than others, and some players take a little bit longer to develop that than others. But it was just really interesting, like, especially on the weekend, just dealing with like getting hit and being able to kind of front up players and hold the ball up and deal with one or two players because you know your body's strong enough to deal with that type of that type of situation. So yeah, it's cool to see it unfold. Like, and I said it to him, I'm like, do you realize that you've been doing this and you weren't really doing it the whole of preseason and then the first couple of games of the season, and then now it's like you've got this confidence in you where you can just hold onto the ball and deal with anything that's around you. You don't recognize that, dude. It's like, well, yeah, actually, now that you say that, like, I do see that happening, and I do feel that that's happening. I do feel a little bit more confident. So I think it's cool to be able to. Like, I don't know what Keith was like when he would go and watch his players play and whether he was kind of like a coach afterwards, like, kind of because he's watching a game and he can say, all right, this is what we did in training. This is kind of how it's unfolded in the game. Can you see how that's worked well together? I don't know whether Keith did that. I mean, you spent a bit of time with him. So is that something that he did?
A little bit. His brother actually did more of it than he did, because his brother does more of the skill stuff. So it was, and they pointed things out to me in the game, like, this guy never did this before. He never used his left like that. He wouldn't drive to the basket in that way. Different things like that, where it's easier to see in certain skills because it's like, well, this is just something that you didn't do before, rather than improving movement quality. There's definitely an aspect there. You could see, like, yeah, he's much stronger on a post up, or he's running past people, or he's got the speed to catch up to a defender or an attacker or something. But it's, yeah, I'm trying to think, but I don't. There were a couple smaller things, but I don't know if he just didn't point a ton of them out or what. But yeah, I mean, it's that post up play that you mentioned that you guys do. That's something that took me a long time to learn how to do. Part of it was I didn't play striker until I got to college, so I never had any practice with it. But part of it was also, it's like, I think there's a bit of a mental thing that goes along with that, of like really getting in and like getting locked in and like battling and fighting in the trenches like that. Like, I always wanted to like dribble my way out of things and like avoid the actual contact. And it worked for me for a long time until I started to play striker, and my coach was like, hold the ball up. I was like, can't I just dribble out of it or something? Like, I don't want this 6'4" dude like up my ass. Like, I'd rather not do that. So that took me a long time to learn, and it's putting on size and being more comfortable with your strength is definitely like it's a huge part of that. And it doesn't mean that you have to be some massive guy, but there's obviously leverages involved with it. But it's that's one of the more, I would say, directly translatable things was strength.
Yeah, because I know that. So like I said, he's not. It's not like he's huge, the big guy, but I think he just understands the way to throw his body around. Where like you can be a massive guy and be strong, most footballers aren't incredibly huge in terms of size. So for them to understand how to throw their body around, it almost like it's better to be that kind of little bit lighter and leaner than to be like super, super heavy and kind of like swinging your way around like a Rocky Balboa, just boxing your way through things, you know? So it's really cool to see those things transition from training to the game. And like I said, having actually watched him pretty much for the last, what's it been, 4 or 5 months in preseason and all that. And you can see that the things start to transition. And like I said, it's not to say that it's just been from training with me, but it's just cool to see that like some of the work that we've been doing has been transitioning into the game. And I, like me personally, when I played, and I was working with a PT at the time, which is when I felt my best. Like I felt really, really good at that time. And then, you know, the world kind of blew up and we stopped training and everything like that. And then that's when I kind of went back downhill. So it's when you're doing these types of training, I think subconsciously you notice that you start to get a little bit more out of your game, and you don't recognize it straight away until you start becoming more consistent, until you start becoming you perform better. You don't get injured as much. Like when you start to go on like a run of those couple of things, and you're continually playing and you're continually playing well and you're continually feeling well, and what would usually hurt doesn't hurt so much anymore. You start to think, well, when did that happen? How did that happen? And you think back to like, oh, I've been doing this for a long time now. Like that's why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. That's why I'm doing so well. That's why I'm so consistent. That's why there's a long time between kind of good and bad. It's like it's mainly good, great, excellent, okay, not so good. Like there's not that much bad going on. And I noticed that myself, and having played, and then and obviously getting injured and whatnot. When you came back from injury, like just sticking with the emotional and I guess mental stuff, you always have that in the back of your mind that like, oh, something could potentially go wrong here, or did you feel like 110% ready to let's go rock and roll?
Never. That was one thing I almost never felt that way. There was always in my mind something, basically all the time, was like, this is giving me some problems. Like it wasn't always like eventually that kind of fear would go away. Like now I'm not worried. Like after a while, I'm not worried about the groin. I'm not worried about the hamstring. I'm not worried about the ankle sprain from 3 months ago or whatever. But there was almost always something that I was like, yeah, this is kind of on the brink, or like this is actually causing me pain at this moment. Like I had heel problems for a long time, and it was just like no matter what boots I wore, they just gave me problems with my heel and different things. It was always like, this is either actually physically hurting me, or I'm like, this feels like it's really close to actually tweaking. So that causes a lot of problems. So I don't know what the actual reason behind this is, but I don't know if you've experienced this. When you're just like playing without any kind of pain, it's just like better things just happen. In my experience, like when you're not hurting, like magically the ball just pops out to you in better positions, or like you end up somewhere for a tap in, or I don't understand it at all, like why things happen, but like things that seem out of your control just like happen better when you're not thinking about an issue with your ankle or with your knee or your hamstring or whatever. I don't know. Have you felt that?
Yeah. See, for me, like I'd probably say that I was the complete opposite, because I always hurt. Like there was always something that never really felt 100%. But whether it was my pain tolerance or my pain threshold, like especially considering I don't really remember what it was like before I ruptured my ACLs and how I felt. And so whenever there was like a little bit of kind of a niggle, whether it was my hip or, I mean, I played through hamstring strains and quad strains, and it wasn't that, not strains, tightness. Like I hardly ever strained anything. Like I remember one game in a preseason, I had severe quad tightness, and it was quad tightness because we got the physio got some needles into it in training, and it was so tight that the needles weren't going through the tissue, like the muscle. I was bending needles and all that kind of stuff, so it was severe tightness. And I can't really remember a game where I didn't have some sort of muscle fatigue or muscle soreness. Like there wasn't really one game, and I think it was more so the fact that my mental, my ability to just kind of override that feeling and be like, well, yeah, you can't do anything about it now, so just get on with it and deal with it. Yeah, I didn't really have. I probably have to go back a while. Like there was one year where I had, my first kind of break-in year after my first after both my reconstructions, after the right and left reconstruction, I broke into the senior squad and ended up playing, a lot of games as a 19-year-old. And that was the year that I had won they have an award for the young player throughout the whole league, and so I won the NPL Rising Star, which was for the whole league. And when I think back to it, that was a pretty solid year for me. Like consistency wise, I was doing really well, but man, I was battered and bruised. Like I had, they've got an award at the end of the year at our soccer club, which is like the trainers award, and they go through how many rolls of tape you used throughout that year. Now I had both ankles strapped. I had halfway through the season, I sprained my medial ligament in a tackle. So I went to go and kick the ball out and someone was kicking back at the same time and I kind of sprained my medial ligament. And I had badly messed up my shoulder. And so I had taping on both ankles, taping on my right knee, taping on my shoulder. I was like a bionic man. And I ended up winning that award, the trainers award too. But I was in constant pain, but I played really, really well. So, I don't know. I think for me personally, it might not be the same as I didn't really play well. I think maybe I was just that type of player. I just dealt with the pain differently. I was already constantly my body usually is constantly in pain from scar tissue and all that kind of stuff, that I don't really associate that with actually being painful, if that makes sense. It's a bit strange. It's a bit strange for people to understand that. I don't think there is a day where I'm not ever not in pain. I'm always in some sort of pain, but I don't really classify that as being pain. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think there's a difference between playing through pain as a defender or an attacker?
100%, 100%. Because playing as an attacker, you have more opportunities to be more explosive. You need to be more explosive. If you want to get past a player or a defender, you can't just kind of drop your shoulder slowly and then move to the left. And then it has to be, you have to have a little bit more explosiveness, a little bit more power, a little bit more unpredictability, just be kind of really quick and fast. And sure, there's a lot relying on you where you need to be in positions. Whereas as a defender, I mean, especially for me, I wasn't overly fast. I was quite fit. But the one thing that, although I wasn't physically fast, I was mentally fast. So I could read when players would go left or go right. I could read where the ball was going. So for me, I was always a couple of steps ahead of an attacking player, which made my position and my job as a defender a lot easier because I could almost see what was coming. Whereas when you've got so for example, as a fullback or as a centre back, my job was always to not let my direct opponent get past me. Whereas kind of your job as a striker is to get past me. So there's a little bit more in terms of I'm resisting you, whereas you're trying to kind of push against that resistance. So there's a little bit of a difference in the two. And what I always found that worked really well for me was I'd make my striker make the first move. or my direct opponent make the first move. As soon as they made the first move, I was able to read where they were going, and I could take them down the line and use the line as my friend, or I could be able to get in front of them, draw a foul, win the ball, or whatever it was. So there was a definite difference in that attacking aspect on the body compared to the defending aspect. Because defending, you literally just need to be resilient. You need to just continually show up. Like, you got to be there like a rash, like just all over the player. No matter what you got to do, you just got to be there. Whereas as an attacker, I think there's a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, as a defender, like you only have to get one thing right on the whole play, and then it's like it's done. Like then there's no goal. But I think there's like a sharpness that comes with being an attacker and trying to score goals like that. That if you have something that you're dealing with, you're gonna be a little bit like put off like that. Like, something's gonna be like a hair less sharp, and then the defender's just gonna be able to like pounce on that might, if you're feeling up to par, you might be able to be just clean enough that they can't do anything about it. But I think that's what happened to me a lot of the times, is like I'm dealing with something and I don't make a cut fast enough, or I'm a little indecisive because I didn't want to put weight on something. I think that was one of the problems for me for a long time, was it because I knew what it felt like to play without pain, because it would happen every once in a while. I would be like, nothing hurts today. That's kind of weird. And then I would go and I would play, and it was like, I feel like I'm playing better. I feel like everybody else on my team is playing better for some reason. Like, the sun is shining, like there's no cloud, like it's the weather's better, like my hair looks good today. I like everything was better. Even things that seemed like entirely unrelated just seemed to be better. And I don't know. That's maybe an attacker's point of view, always looking for excuses on it. But
so I never really truly appreciated it, and I probably never will, because I haven't been in this position now. But obviously since on my way to becoming a father, and never truly being tired when I'm playing. So like, especially when you're playing semi-pro, you're never, ever, ever going to have everything be perfect. You're doing a laboring job, you're working as a plumber, maybe you're working a desk job, and you're sitting down all day, and then you're coming out to play. So you probably, chances are of you feeling 110% are going to be minimal. And I guess that was in my brain early. And one of my teammates at the time was 33. he just had twins. And we were playing against one of the top teams. And I remember him telling me after the game. And he was having a chat with the strikers. We ended up winning that game, and not having a chat. He was having a bit of banter with the strikers. These strikers are these young kids who're probably going out that night and having fun and doing whatever the young kids are doing. And he's like, guys, I've been up all night with twins. I had 2 hours sleep, and you guys still haven't scored a goal against me. Like, I think there's something to be said about that mental resilience when it comes to things like that, because nothing's ever going to be perfect. And if you are struggling to score against someone who's been up all night, who hasn't slept, who probably hasn't eaten well either, and you're playing against kind of like the one of the best teams, and you still can't score against them, or you're still struggling to play, it says a lot about you, I think, in both ways, as like a player that's dealing with that, but then also a player that can't work past that. Because not that everyone knows what everyone's up to. Like, it's not like I tune into your life as a player and be like, yeah, so he hasn't slept well, so that means I'm going to play better than him. No, that doesn't really work that way. But I think when your back's up against the wall in those aspects, and you're able to kind of dig it out a little bit, it kind of shows that resilience that, hey, like, it doesn't really matter as much as what people say it matters. You know, you got to get your 8 hours sleep. You got to make sure that you're eating well. Have to eat at 8 o'clock. Make sure you're having pasta or meat before whatever it is that you have, or you got to have your lucky undies on, because if you don't have your lucky undies on, like, you're not going to play well. Like, I think I was very superstitious at a point, and then afterwards I'm like, let's just play. Like, stop putting so much pressure on yourself to play and to play well, that you start thinking about all these things you haven't done, and then that gets on your mind, and then you start playing like shit, and then it's just like this negative effect. Whereas if it's like, let's go, it kind of just, it's out of my hands. I couldn't do it. I couldn't sleep well. Like, I just have to play. Like, that's all I got. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't know whether you've experienced playing against players like that, because you kind of play college level, and there might not have been too many dads. Well, there might
Not
have
a
been. I
lot.
don't know.
Not a lot. Not a lot. Yeah, it took me a long time to figure out the mindset of like getting to a place where you're like, yeah, I can come out and I can perform no matter what. And if I got to sleep right and get the food I wanted and feel good on game days, then like that's a bonus. Like I think that's a much better mindset than I had while I was playing. It was like I mean, like I would bring my own food on away trips at some points in my and that and like sometimes I would all I would eat before a game was fruit. Like there was a whole bunch of different things. It was like if I didn't sleep well, I was like, not that I would like write the game off. I would still do whatever I could, but it was like that was in the back of my mind. Um, yeah, I mean, so that mindset is something I don't know that I truly embodied even until after I was done playing. But I think it's such an important thing to be able to be like, yeah, I'll be able to play with the best of them, no matter what the circumstance. And like, yeah, if things fall my way, like even better. But taking the expectation and the need away from all the external things is like is a massive factor there.
Yeah, and maybe it is because, like, again, as a defender, it can be easier to maybe push through that, because you just kind of got to be concentrated for 95 plus minutes. That's it. As long as you can stay concentrated, and you can, because especially as a central defender, if you can get other players to do work for you, as in like you can get your center midfielders, you can get your wingers, you can get your strikers defending from the front and positioning themselves, so it makes your job easier. So then your direct opponent doesn't get the ball. Well, then it's a lot easier to have that done. I'm curious, when you played, you obviously had particular coaches. Did you ever at any time have a coach that you really kind of didn't get along well with, and it made it hard for you to turn up at any point in your career?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little, to be fair, I had the same coach for the last 5 years of my career, so it's hard to really think about before then. But I mean, it's not like I never had a coach where I was like, this guy just really sucks and like I don't want to be out on this field. But there were coaches that I had that I was like, I feel like we were just not adequately prepared for this, because I was part of a lot of really talented teams when I was, especially when I was in high school. We had like our school team was very much should have won everything every year, just on the nature of the players on our team. But we had a coach that, all right, so I'll run you, this was our training session literally every day. Was we would pull up to the field, everybody would change, you get your stuff on, you go out, you do the warm up, you do a little bit of like kind of a technical work thing, like some of the times, like you throw the ball and you pass it back, whatever. And then we just played 3v3 for the rest of the time, transitions. And then we did play the finishing game, the same finishing game every day, and then we went home. And that was literally every training session, no matter if it was the first one of the year or before like the semifinals of the state tournament. The only thing that would change is right before the state tournament started, you would have a day where we figured out who the PK takers were. And then other than that, every day was the same. So it was like we would roll up to these tournaments and coaches would have came and like scouted our teams and known what we were doing and how we played and everything. And I mean, our coaches' mindset is like, we just have better players. Like, let's just go beat that team. And then it's like, could you have like given us a rundown or something, or like maybe done like some sort of tactical work at any point through the entire year rather than just like rolling us out there? And then we had like relative success, but I think that, and I've had a couple coaches like that where it's like not everybody ran training sessions like that, but it was like I don't know that we have the intensity or the preparedness here. And then there's also people on the other end of the spectrum that have had it's like you're a little bit over intensive and over preparing for this. Like you're giving us exact pressing schemes that we don't even know if that's how that team's gonna line up. And then pushing hard on different things. So it's yeah, I don't know. I mean, I much prefer the over prepared pushing and you can kind of like be like, all right, tone that down and you don't have to do it exactly like that. But yeah, I mean to go back to the original question, sort of, but not really.
Yeah, yeah. I guess the reason why I ask is I saw something the other day which it was on Instagram, so a real yeah, it's a guy with like a quite a number of followers, and he puts out some really really cool content. And there was one thing that I just disagreed with, where he said that like if you got a bad coach, like just move teams, move away from the bad coach. That's that's a bit of a cop out. I feel I've had some bad coaches, and I did that, and I moved teams, and firstly, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Like most times, it isn't. You think it is, and it isn't. And where you are, you should have stayed where you were, because then you have to build new relationships. You've got to find out how the team plays. You've got to work positions. There's all these extra things that you've got to do. And the second thing is that what is that specific instance teaching you? So you're playing as you're playing under a coach who might not really like you, who might not, and I've experienced this many, many, many times where the coach is just like, they just don't seem to like you. They just don't seem to get along with you. And it's like, what am I doing wrong? It's like, well, it's not really what you're doing wrong. It's like, what aren't you doing right, maybe? Or how can you develop trust between the coach? Because there's been instances where it's like, it just hasn't worked for me. And so anyway, going back to what I saw on Instagram, he said like, if there's something, if you don't like the coach, or the coach doesn't like you, just move teams, man. Like don't quit the sport or anything like that. It's like, no, you kind of, I think you need to stay where you are. Having had that experience now, I think you need to stay where you are, because if you stay where you are, you can develop skills in communication, in resilience, that are able to push you past your boundaries, because you need to be able to work in these shitty situations. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. Like it's not going to be that way all the time. So I when I was younger, like I would have been like, "No, get out of here." Like there's been players that have come to me and said, "Hey, Steph, I want your opinion, your advice." And I did the same thing to older players as well when I was leaving, and I got the advice that leave and go and play. And I'm like, "Okay, cool." They said that, and it was like a consistent thing: leave and go and play, leave and go and play. Like you need to get game time. It's like, well, why aren't I getting game time in what was considered the best team in the league at the time? Do I need to push myself more? Am I going to learn if I go and play somewhere else? Is that coach actually going to be better for my development? Is that playing group going to be better for my development? Am I actually going to develop better as a player or not? Like there are all these things you see, this big shiny object that's sitting there at the end of the tunnel. And like sometimes, I've said it before, sometimes it is like the exit of the tunnel, but other times it's like another train coming back the other way, like the light of another train. So it's not always going to be that because you got a bad coach and you move somewhere else, it's going to be just as good for you. So yeah, I saw that, and it kind of like, yeah, I just disagreed. I disagreed with it wholeheartedly.
I think there's a distinction between a bad coach and a coach that doesn't like you.
Yeah.
If your coach just doesn't like you and isn't playing you, then it's like, all right, you almost certainly. This is something I figured out pretty early on. I was like, it's not that my coach doesn't like me. It's that my coach. I'm almost certain that our coach is doing whatever he thinks in his mind is best to win. And if it's something stupid, it's something stupid. But like, it's not that he just doesn't like me. Like maybe he has a bad reason, but like, it's not. He's not like, yeah, I just do not like this Matthew kid. Like, I'm just not going to play him. I don't think that's ever like. I think that's very rarely the case on any team. If your coach sucks, though, like you just have a bad coach, leave. If you have a bad team and there's a better team you can get on, leave for sure. I think I think a good piece of advice is to get on the best team you can be on. Whether you're like maybe you don't roll in as a starter on that team. I think the best example of this I can give is when I was on some of the youth teams, we had good teams, but then occasionally there would be somebody who was put on our team that wasn't good enough to be on the team, but whatever, parent was a higher up at the club or whatever. And he was on our team for like 3 years. And like at first it was like, this dude just really sucks. Like, I just don't want to play with this kid. But after like 3 years, he was like very much like a serviceable person on the team. And if he would have played on a team that was his level, there was no way in 3 years he would have been able to play on our team. But suffering through for those 3 years of like getting like having people get pissed off at you because you're not good enough, but then all of a sudden like plenty good enough to play on our team. Like still wasn't a starter, granted, but like you weren't like, shit, man, why is he here? Like you were like, all right, I could see how you could be a bench player on our team. So granted, game time is important, but like get on the better team if you can.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing too. Like you don't know what the better team is, like because there's a lot more to just points on a board than there is to, and especially it probably goes more so for the season, as in like the seasons beforehand, rather than how they're doing at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, from my experience, from what I've experienced, that's probably one thing I would have potentially changed, although it has made me who I am today, and it's given me the experiences that I've experienced and all that. So, but there was probably one instance where I left my original club. I went and played at another club. We got relegated, and then I went interstate, played interstate for a little bit, came back, and then went back to I got asked to come back from the new coach. He wanted me to come back. Came back, wasn't in the fittest shape of my life, and hardly played a game. Like I'm a left footer. I had right-footed players playing left back because the coach just didn't put any faith or trust in me. And so that pre-season, I worked like a madman to get back into the squad. And same thing happened. Didn't get anywhere. And I'm like, what have I done wrong? It's like, okay, I need to figure out what's going on here because there's something that's not working. He wanted me back, but he's not playing me. So why is he not playing me? Like I'm fit, I'm fast. Like I actually worked really, really hard to build speed, to build strength, to build conditioning, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is just not making sense. Something's not quite right here. Then it clicked in my head. I had a chat with my godfather, and he's like, and he doesn't even remember telling me this. And this is something for footballers, I feel, that can dramatically change the way that the coach perceives you as a player. Because the reason why he didn't play me was because he didn't trust me. And I know that now. And my godfather said, listen, Steph, when you go and shake his hand, and just tap him on the shoulder. And I'm like, all right, cool, no worries. And maybe just things started happening, I don't know, like from that moment, or maybe it wasn't even that, but I started doing that more and more. And all of a sudden, like things started changing. Started laughing more with me, started getting in conversations more. And it's like, this is weird. I still wasn't being played though. And then all of a sudden things started happening. Player went down injured. I came on, and from that moment, that player got injured. Didn't lose my spot until I re-ruptured my my ACL, my right ACL. So there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot to be said about. It's not always about you. It's about how they feel about you. So how can you build trust between coaches? You find it hard to play. It might be very, very hard for you to actually get into the squad or get into the starting lineup because of whatever's going on. They don't trust you. So how can you build that trust with them? How can you get them to put faith and trust in you? And it could be just as simple as shake the hand, connect, just tap them on the shoulder. It was so weird how it happened, man. So strange, because it was like from there, it only took 4 weeks and I was in the starting lineup, and I played again every single game from then on in until I did my knee again, which was, yeah. and playing well too, like picking up points and everything like that. So it was, I just feel like it's, from what I saw that was on Instagram, it was like, if the coach doesn't like you, leave, go and play somewhere else. It's like, I feel like you can work a lot more on yourself than just going like, this coach hates me, I'm leaving, I'm going to go somewhere else where a coach likes me. It's a bit of a cop out, I feel. Anyway.
Yeah. Steph's number one tip to get in the starting lineup: tap your coach on the shoulder with the hand.
Shake his hand.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I believe you. It sounds weird, but it does make sense in my brain. And to be fair, I've asked every coach I've had, probably multiple times. Some coaches that I had for a long time, I asked dozens of times. I was like, what do I need to do better? Like, why am I not playing as much as, and granted, there was always the aspect of like, well, I'm in a lot of pain right now, so I'm not playing that well. But like, I've asked so many coaches, like, why am I not playing? And coaches will tell you, unless you have like a serious asshole as a coach, like they're gonna tell you. Like, every coach I ever asked told me, and like, I tried. Granted, it always annoyed me that, like, I knew players that if they would have asked coach, they would be like, yeah, you just have the first touch of an elephant. Like, just get that better and you'll be in the lineup. Like, I wish somebody would have told me that, but it was always like mental. It was like, yeah, you like are in the game for periods, and like you'll like take over the game for 5 minutes and then you're kind of out of it. Like, we want you to like that 5 minutes to be the whole game. And I was like, that's annoying. Like,
it gives you nothing to work with. I had, the one thing for me was, you got to lose more weight. It's like, okay, cool. Came back after that pre-preseason, and I was fit. I was trim. I dropped kilos. I think I dropped about 4 or 5 kilos, and that was my steady weight. Dropped everything. Everything was perfect in my eyes. Still couldn't get a gig. Still couldn't start. So it's like, And when you've got things like that happening, like you said, where it's like you're in for portions of the game and then you go missing and then you come back out again, it's like, well, give me something tangible to work on. I can't work on that, because how do you want me to stay more involved in a game if I can't get more involved in a game? Like, there's different situations that are occurring. Like, it's just, that's not something physical that I can actually, intangible that I can actually work on. It's frustrating as a player, because when coaches say stupid shit like that, that pissed me off. That really pissed me off, because how do you get better at that? How do you practice that? Like, you can't practice that. What you need to, like, do you change the way that you play, or do you want me to be this completely different player? How do you see me as a player? Like, that frustrates me when coaches have said things like that to me. It's never made sense. And me and my young mind will be like, okay, cool. All right, next time I play, I'm gonna be more proactive and be in like better positions and do better things. But you get in that position, you maybe freak out as a player. Maybe you don't do what you truly wanted to do, or the opposition you're playing against is tougher, or like there's things that change. That really gives me the shits, man.
yeah. And I mean, sometimes you gotta dig deeper. Like, I mean, I've had coaches tell me like, yeah, it's like you just can't hold up the ball as a striker. Like, we need somebody to do that, and you just are not good at that. But I remember that, yeah, the same. I think I dug a little bit deeper when my coach told me that. He was like, he pulled out like a specific period of a game. He was like, you were the attacking threat here. I need that all the time. I was like, I mean, like, how do you want me to do that more? And then there was something, I can't remember exactly what he was saying. He's like, there's this like zone that you normally play in, and then like there's a line, and when you're above that line, you are like boss in the game. So he started telling me to play above the line. Like, before, like if I would start the game, before the game, he'd be like, be above the line. Or like if I was subbing back in, he'd be like, play above the line. And like, I never played particularly well when he told me that, because it was just like, all right, I have to go in there and I have to control the whole game. And then you start forcing things and like trying to make things happen versus just kind of like, I think there is something to be said maybe this is an attacker thing too. I think there was a pretty significant difference with defenders where it's like, if you just like let things happen as a defender, you kind of just like, all right, well, they just walked by me. But like when you try and force things to happen as a forward, it's like something's not going to work. It's not going to be this smooth and the way it should be. So I would like, I'd be like, all right, above the line, above the line, above the line. First, that doesn't mean anything. First of all, there's no like mythical chart of like, this is where you played on the 19th. This is where you played on the 23rd. Like, no, that's not a real thing. So and then you're thinking about it. You're like, shit, man, I haven't touched the ball in like 3 minutes. I got to get the ball and do something cool. And like, cool for me was like trying to dribble the whole defense and that. And then it's like, I lost. It's like, oh God, I lost. I got to do something even cooler on the next possession to make for that. And that I haven't touched the ball in 5 minutes now. Like, I don't know. To be fair, I never really figured it out while I was playing. It's the reason I stopped playing at a high level. So I don't have a great answer for it.
Yeah, I think there's differences between attackers and defenders for sure. Because like attackers, like I said, the control is in, the ball's in their court. Like they need to be the ones making the move. So whereas as the defender, if you can get 100% pass rate, if you don't let your striker get, like there's tangible things that you can work on. All right, so my tackling needs to be at 100%. My passes need to be at 100%. My positioning needs to be at 100%. That is pretty much everything as a defender. Then there's extra bonuses or added things. So for me, I would set myself goals. Every half, I'd need to do at least 2 crosses into the box as a fullback. If I can get 2 crosses into the box, well, then I'm getting forward, but then I'm also getting back and defending. And then I'm able to get into attacking positions to be able to help my team score more goals. And chances are, if I'm getting up twice, well, then I'm getting up a couple more times as well. And I'm advancing forward and I'm making my striker accountable. So there's added goals that you can kind of throw in. But as an attacker, it's like there are things that are kind of left out of your control because you're playing against someone who is trying to stop you from getting past, and you're in control of the ball. So you're in control of the situation, but you decide on what's actually going to happen and where you go and how you kind of move the ball and that sort of stuff. So there are differences 100% between your attackers and your defenders. Attackers just need to be more consistent, as in like just continually, obviously keep a clean sheet, make sure that we're tackling well, we're passing well, we're communicating well, we're positioning well. Whereas strikers, you have to do all of that, but there is a little bit more left to your own demise. Like you don't, there's not really a list that you kind of have to tick off. It's a little bit different that's from a defensive perspective. I feel like as long as you do those 4 or 5 things as a defender, chances are you're going to have a pretty consistent game. Chances are you're going to give it like a 7-ish, between a 6 and 8 out of 10, which is considered to be consistent. And you can level that up as well if you start getting forward or if you start being stronger, whether it's on the ball or defending or everything else. Whereas as a striker, I think there's a little bit more that's left to the striker themselves, where it's like creativity. Bring me some spark. Play above the line. Where's that line?
Yeah, you got to have like a little bit of magic to score a goal. Like everything's got to be right, and something has to like a little spark of creativity or something. It's like it's very much as a defender in my eye. I haven't played much defender. I've played a little bit, but not well either. It's like you pretty much, yeah. I mean, you kind of said it. Like you know what you have to do. Like, and there's also the aspect of like, this is the defensive space. Like as an attacker, you're trying to like get into there, and like you have to like make something happen to get into that space. Versus the defender, it's like everything's sort of under your control in front of you. You're dealing with it. It's I don't know. I mean, you could talk about the differences all day. But it's like I don't know. That's also the reason I never liked defending, because it was like there's really no fun here in my eyes. Like it's like it's just like all it's like all right, you just gotta do all the simple stuff every time. You're like, all right, stay in position, stay focused, like pass, make an easy pass, like just complete your pass and get back in the back line. I was like, this sucks, man. Like this is like
there's something to that discipline though. Like I love that. I love
there's something to it
nailing.
is that it's lame.
Typical striker. Like I love nailing wingers like you or strikers like you, putting you on your ass and then playing the ball and then just keeping it simple, like or not conceding a goal or just hitting like nice crisp passes and just consistently backing it up. When I would attack, like I never really run one-on-one at players. That wasn't my thing. It was more like I would prefer to have players run one-on-one at me and then just drop them and nail them, win that ball, then get rid of it and then pass it and play it and move forward. And it was such a mental game as a defender, which like maybe that's, and when we go back to that pain stuff that we're talking about, maybe that's why I played through copious amounts of pain, because it's just about that discipline and it's about being able to just continually back it up and just dealing with it, like I don't know, maybe it is, and maybe as a striker I don't really know many strikers. Like usually actually in the team at the moment that I'm working with, probably more so is the strikers who are the ones that complain a little bit more, like my hamstrings are sore or my hips are sore, my back, or like, whereas the defenders, it's like they're sore but they're like, well, I don't,
You're
I'm
also
used to being.
you're also getting hit versus hitting somebody is a difference.
Yeah,
I think it
yeah,
like like, all right, I'm about to smash this guy. Like, let's brace up a little bit. Or if like somebody just played me a hospital pass and I just get clobbered, it was, I had no idea that guy was coming. Like that.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
a little bit of a difference. See, the thing with defending is that I liked making like the flashy defensive plays still. Like I liked running somebody down from behind and like getting around and poking it away and doing something cool like that. But like if you had like I was a good one-on-one defender because I was still pretty athletic and like I could like part of it understood like what somebody was trying to do because I knew how to do it better than they did. But like if you had to have me defend like as a team, like in the block, like get the line forward, like stay in position, shift, I was like I'd rather take a nap or something. Like this is so boring. This is so lame. Like I had a hard time. Like I would check out if I didn't have the ball, even if our team had the ball sometimes. Like it was like give me the ball. Cause that's just the way I played, was like pretty ball dominant. Like I give me the ball and let me do it because I trust myself more than anybody else, which is sort of a bad thing, but also that kind of what I came to realize, and I think my mom told me this at one point, she was like, you would dribble, like I would dribble myself into so many bad situations when I was younger. Like I could have just passed it, but like I would keep dribbling and I would get in this horrible spot where it'd be like 2-on-1, 3-on-1 or something. But I did it so many times that I got good enough at like I could get out of it. So it was like dribble so much that you have to get good at dribbling out of bad situations, and then you get good at dribbling. And it was like probably should have just learned to pass and move when I was younger, but it was like I don't think that was a bad thing actually. Like being selfish like that is kind of why I could do cool things with the ball and why I was good with it at my feet, which is a weird idea, but that's I tell people like when they're younger, it's like just like dribble more. Like your coach is gonna want you to just like pass and move because it's good for the team, but like you're like 13, like dribble more and like get good at dribbling in bad situations, and then you can learn to pass and move later. Like that's an easy thing to do. Like to cycle the ball, that's easy. Dribbling with 3 guys on you is a hard thing to learn when you're 18.
Yeah, there's a definite skill in that, and it's true. I agree. I think that everyone should have that ability to do that. Can't dribble even as a defender or as a central defender. Like there's many defenders as centre backs. Like I've looked at some players from like even 60s and 70s and 80s, like Franz Beckenbauer, who would just like he just go like the team would just part like just, and he would just run straight through, and you'd have like there's an Australian player who was very similar, who played in that era, Milan Ivanovic, who did the same thing like as a defender, you would just have this confidence where like, yeah, I'll just keep going and just keep dribbling through. There's some players that I played with that would do the same thing. And it's kind of taking the game to your own hands. Like you just, yep, I need to progress here. I can grab, as they say, grab the game by the by the horns or by the balls or whatever it is, and just take it on yourself. Like if you haven't had that confidence or had that ability to do that and be taught that as a player in general in terms of dribbling, it's very, very hard to get it later on in your career. So yeah, there's a big difference in all of that for sure.
Yeah, that's another thing why I like playing small sided, and I played small sided the majority of the time when I was younger. It was like if you go out and you dribble into a 3-on-1 and you try and get out of it, and you want to do that 100 times in a full 11v11 or whatever you play at that age group, like that's not going to be a good thing. Like that only happens every once in a while in a big game. But if you're playing like 3s, 4s, 5s, then like your teammates might get kind of mad at you, but like trying it there's so many more opportunities that it's like that's where you can learn to do something like that. And that's why I like small sided better, because you can learn. And that also that's where, I don't know, I just like small sided better. There's a lot of stuff to back that up in terms of lots of repetitions in a small period of time, but I'm team small sided. So
yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of the small sided stuff because it's close combat for me. No, well, and the dribbling stuff too. But it's like there's more chance to nail some players and to win the ball, and then put the ball. Like when I was a kid, the one thing I used to love doing was nutmegging people and like calling it in their face as well. So I'd play when I was younger. I'd play as a central midfielder, so like a defensive midfielder, a central midfielder. That was like I loved playing that position because you were constantly getting on the ball, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the defending and the working hard to like getting across from player to player, trying to cut passes off to the striker, or just working and pressing the attacking midfielders who, in my eyes back then, were just so mentally weak. Like you'd nail them in a tackle and they would just disappear for the rest of the game. Like they wouldn't be there. And so like to mentally get on top of them, and then you'd put the ball through their legs as a centre midfielder or a defensive midfielder, and their confidence would just drop even lower, and they'd be like, oh man, this is the fucking worst game of my life. Like they were hating it. And like calling them eggs as well. So there'd be players standing there. And I can remember doing these types of things where like there'd be a player, you'd have these players around you. And you would, this is just one player kind of just standing there and waiting. And I just put the ball through his legs. And he's like, but you weren't even like, you had two other players there and you put the ball through my legs, and then you would call Megs. And it's just, they were fun times. And a lot of that fun got taken out of it when I moved towards the senior level, because a coach kind of tries to break you down because they want you to play a specific way. They don't want you to play like that anymore. They don't want you to have that flair or that creativity, because you know they don't want that. That's not what they want, and what they says goes. So, and I lost a lot of that, and it's actually something that I got back when I moved teams, when I played at a different team, and maybe that's why we got relegated. I don't know. But
that's something that like I did deal with. It was like before I got to college, I played every game like it was the futsal game, like just doing whatever I wanted, the megs and hitting 4 step overs in a row. And I got to college and it was like cut that. But then it was once I got confident in playing that way, then I could add it back in. So it's not always a bad thing to get that kind of, in my case, for me, it was actually a good thing to get that like beaten out of me, and then I could bring it back in a more reasonable fashion. Then it was like, by then it was like, all right, I can do cool stuff again when I want. But it's that's not always a bad thing. But if you just like beat that out of somebody who doesn't already have it, like they're just never coming back.
Yeah. Like I'll try anything to put the ball through someone's legs. Anything, no matter what. Even at training, like players walking past, and it's like, can I get it through? Can I just tap it through? Can we just like even just sliding the ball across and pretending to pass it, and then they're doing like the stutter and then put it through their legs? It's like
I still do that. I love that. There's nothing more fun. The only thing more fun than nutmegging somebody is making somebody fall over.
doing that crossover in basketball,
The
and then they're just like, ah! Yeah.
Yeah, the biggest regret I think I have of my entire college career was I hit. So we had this guy that was big. He looked like a linebacker. He was probably like 5'9", like 200 plus pounds. I don't know what that is in centimeters, but like 100 kilos plus.
Yeah.
Like couple inches shorter than me. Looked like a bowling ball. I hit him. We were playing small sided. I hit him with an elastico, and I was like, all right, I got him. Good. And I kept going. And he told me afterwards, he was like, dude, you made me fall over. And I was so mad because I didn't see it. All I wanted was to see it. I just wish I would have seen him like fall over. Like people used to heckle him and be like, "Oh, if he falls over, there's gonna be an earthquake or something." Like I.
Oh,
That's the biggest regret is that
poor
I
guy.
didn't see him just fall over because I hit him so bad with the elastico. There's
If
no better feeling than that.
if you did that to me in a game, you would. I wouldn't open the gate for you. I would just put you over the fence. Whatever I needed to do to get you over the fence, that's all I would do. There is no chance I can let you get away with that ever, ever. And it would be just like I've. This is going back old school and speaking with like a couple of the players who played in like the 1990s and early 2000s. You're playing like a big game against a solid opposition, and I've heard stories where like it's kickoff and there's a player who's on the opposition team who's like a decent player but runs his mouth a little bit and just gets involved where he shouldn't get involved, and kickoffs happened, ball's gone back, ball's got played out to that player on the ball, and it's like first 10 seconds and just whack out of the game. Yellow cards for the player who put the tackle in. That player's gone, subbed off, like finished, game over. And it's like, not that I would do that intentionally to hurt people. You're obviously always going for the ball, but sometimes it's like I can understand why back in that era, why they were just like, you're dead. That's it. Game over. Finished.
I can understand. I didn't defend that much, so I've never gotten into that mindset. But it's like there were times where I wasn't like a talker, but there were times where I was having a day, and like the left back or the right back or whatever was like, you like look over the bench, he's like, you got to get this guy off. Like this sucks. This sucks for him, man. Like this, like he's called like I'm called. You need to get somebody in here new for me. Like like this guy's chopped
Yeah.
up already. So
Yeah.
I wasn't. Were you a talker on the field?
Yeah. Yeah, I like to get. It was a bit of riffraff, a bit of chat, a bit of argy bargy, we'll call it. Like it'd be like it wasn't unfair, but it's like getting close and just making my direct opponent feel a little bit uncomfortable. Like, and every tackle was just like, I want you to feel this tackle, and then even the chat sometimes too. Um, it wasn't as much chat. I could take a little bit, but I would try. I would give it back. I'd give it back. Not all the time. I was more so. I'd talk with my with my body and tackling you. That's how I would talk.
Yeah, that I didn't. Yeah, I do. I wasn't much of a chatter, but like occasionally things would just like come out. Like if you beat somebody bad and you're running, he's like, "Hey, you like that?" And like you keep running with the ball or something. Just like
I hate
stupid things like that would just like I wasn't talking all the time, but occasionally something was just like too good. I just had like then I have no control and it just comes out in the middle of a game.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's much more fun to just like it's more fun to talk to the rest of the team about the guy that you're like beaten down on.
Yeah.
You're like
There's
this
been a
guy's not even
couple.
good enough to talk. Like you're not even good enough for me to talk to you. Like, I'll tell the rest of your team that you suck. Like
Yeah, no, it's probably the same things. Same things happen, like you said, happens to us as well. Like, and it has happened to me too, a couple of times. But like I said, yeah, I let my tackling do the talking, but then also like when players get upset because it's like the tackles are fair, but they're hard. Like there was a game played against a player, and I had him plus his whole family yelling and screaming at me, and I'm just like, so what? like just constantly. And I followed him everywhere. Like that was my first game back from when I had my my knee reconstruction, the final one when they didn't replace the ACL. And he was playing right wing, I was playing left back. This was a cup semi-final for the reserve team. My first game back, I played 120 minutes plus penalties, missed a penalty, which, you know, that's okay.
Ooh.
But yeah, it was rough. It was rough. But yeah, I followed him everywhere. I was just like a bad smell, and just constantly, just everywhere, and could not do anything. Just couldn't do anything. It was a great game. It was a great game. Yeah, they're just reliving those memories. But anyway, what's that? We've been going for about an hour and 10 talking about our highlights of our career.
Yeah,
just keep going.
Reminiscent. I never missed a penalty. I put that out there. Never missed a penalty in a game. So
yeah, I can't say that.
Cool as ice.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Ice cold.
Not you, but what?
you for sure, sure. Yeah.
Just me. Anyway, where can people find you? Get on your program. Free ebook.
Yeah. We are on Instagram, Coach Carly with the 3 eyes. The ebook is out. Get onto the ebook, download it for free, and the programming is there too. Going to start changing some things up a little bit with the programming, so keep your eyes peeled. Jump onto the free ebook as well. There's a whole heap of great information in the ebook, and also there is a cool little deal as well if you download the ebook for the programming. So check it out, and you'll even be able to get the free deal as well. So how about yourself, Matty?
Yeah, Score Performance everywhere. It's social, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. Soccer Speed System, Soccer Strength System, both out now. Somebody DMs me off here, I'll give you a discount. But anyway, it's up there. I didn't describe it as well as Steph did, but the page will let you know what's going on. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And next time we'll have clips of Steph missing a PK or something for you.